So we're going to be ranking the Alien movies from worst to best. We're just talking about the main seven because I have not seen the Alien vs. Predator movies because one, that would take too long. It would postpone this video much longer than I already have. And two, I looked it up. They're apparently not too lore important. They're more fan servicey like Freddy vs. Jason. I'd also have to catch up with the Predator movies, which I do plan on doing, just not right now. Alright, starting in dead last, the worst Alien movie objectively, Alien Resurrection, 1997. Nobody is surprised by this. This is probably the only movie in the franchise I would consider a horrible movie. We got some bad ones, we got some mid ones here and there. This is the terrible one. This is the one that you can laugh at because it's a so bad it's funny movie. It's directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, the same director behind Amélie, and I believe Amélie came out right after this movie. That was his next movie he made a few years later. So around that time, he knew what he was doing as a director. He just fumbled the ball big time on this. This is a badly directed movie, but the directing is not the only problem in this movie. The writing is actually worse. And the writer is, of course, Joss Whedon, the Marvel legend himself, Joss Whedon. Obviously, personally, I don't have a problem with Joss Whedon. I don't hate him. I'm not a fan of his either. His specific type of writing, his dialogue, those witty one-liners back and forth, those work for a specific type of movie. I just don't think that they work for an Alien movie. Resurrection is the black sheep of this franchise for good reason. It feels so tonally different than the rest. This was the fourth movie, and compared to the original trilogy, it's like night and day. Alien is a horror movie, Aliens is a sci-fi action, and Alien 3 is like this dark survival thriller type. The first three Alien movies, they play into different genres, different subgenres, but they tonally feel consistent in terms of character writing, character dialogue, atmosphere. Alien Resurrection just went completely left field. And I'm not saying make the same shit every time. No, in fact, that's why I won't spoil it, but that's why I have Prometheus pretty high up, because it took creative liberties, it tried exploring new ideas, new themes, but tonally, Prometheus feels in the same universe as the Alien movies. Resurrection went for this generic monster slasher, sleazy shit dialogue movie that just fails everywhere. The acting is not that good because the actors are given such a horrible script that even Daniel Day-Lewis couldn't save. There's really not one performance that sticks out in a good way. These actors are not given anything to work with, and it shows. I really can't underestimate how bad the writing is. Not just in terms of dialogue and script, even though that probably is one of the weaker parts in an already weak movie. I mean in terms of the actual character writing themselves. None of the characters you like. They're all lifeless, unlikable douchebags. And I get that they're smugglers, so they're not really supposed to be likable. But the characters of Alien 3 are literally murderers and rapists, and you like them more. You don't remember any of the names. They ruined Ripley in this movie. I won't spoil it, but you know what I mean when I say that. They have her saying the craziest shit in this movie. Here's Ripley in Alien Resurrection, and I quote, "Who do I have to fuck to get off this boat?" Why would you say that? I will never fault a movie trying to do something new and creative within its own franchise. But if you're gonna do something creative, be bold but be good. You don't just get brownie points for being different. Alien Resurrection is different in terms of tone and writing because we go from good to bad. But it's the exact same story as Ridley Scott's original Alien. You got a bunch of people on a spaceship and a xenomorph is just going around killing everybody. That's it, except one movie's good and one's dog shit. This one is the dog shit one. Late 90s, so all the effects unfortunately look terrible. The digital effects look bad. The practical effects, it sucks because the Alien franchise was kind of known, at least at one point, to have great practical effects. That's kind of what kickstarted the whole movie franchise. But although the practical effects are well made in Resurrection, the designs of them are so silly. You got the Queen Alien with these little ass dinosaur arms looking like a moron. And then you got this stupid ass human hybrid newborn thing at the end, which at first looked cool. We get shots of its face and it's got like a humanoid skull. At first it was creepy. At first it had aura. I was like, oh my god. But then they kept showing it. They kept showing its face. You start seeing its eyes. They showed it being expressive because it is a human hybrid. On paper, this weird alien monster thing expressing like clear emotions of anger, of rage. That sounds scary. That sounds like a cool idea. In execution, laughable. This thing looks like a fucking idiot. And then you see it's full shot, and it's like, okay, why would I be scared of you? Look like a cockroach. Leave. It's not scary. It's not gross in a scary way. It just looks wimpy. It looks like a dweeb. No spoilers, but the ending of this movie is very funny. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen the ending. And it's not supposed to be funny. Yeah, so this movie fails on everything. You got the worst cast of characters in any Alien movie ever. All the acting is just mediocre at best. The writing is probably the worst part. The story itself is unoriginal. It's not atmospheric at all. I'm trying to think, is there anything good I liked about Resurrection? I will say, again, not spoiling the ending. If you've seen the ending of Resurrection, I have no backing on this, but I'm pretty sure it drew some inspiration to Hunter x Hunter, the Chimera Ant arc. If you've seen Resurrection and if you've seen Hunter x Hunter, there's something there. There's something there. I won't get into the details, but there's something there. I know it. I have no proof, but I know it. I did like there's one scene where we have the entire cast walk into this room. It's like a laboratory room, and you see all these hybrid experiments. I thought that was some good body horror. There's some creepy things happening in there. So, in an almost 2-hour movie, you get good 3 minutes in it. It's a shame this is a bad movie because Jean-Pierre Jeunet made Amélie, and that movie's amazing. Joss Whedon has had some hits in the past. The Avengers was good. I like The Avengers. This movie could have been good, but this is definitely one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Not like a top 3, probably in like a top 20. Yeah. Watch it if you want to laugh at it with some friends. That'd be a good Friday night. Alright, next, second to last, in 6th place, we do have Alien Covenant, directed by Ridley Scott, the man himself, 2017. Now hold on, Covenant heads, because I know what you're going to say, so I'll say it for you. Ridley Scott will always get points from me for going into his own franchise and trying to explore new ideas, new themes. I would say Prometheus did a better job at that, but Covenant also took its own liberties, and I respect that. I like that. You get points for that. I like originality. Originality, unfortunately, is not the only thing that makes a movie good or bad. And this movie, although original in this franchise, it doesn't, as a story, it did not work for me. But let's get into the good first. What I liked about Covenant. One, this movie is shot beautifully. It has the same cinematographer as the cinematographer of Prometheus, which I believe you pronounce the name Dariusz Wolski. Him and Ridley Scott know how to make a beautiful looking movie. Besides the original Alien, I would say Prometheus and Covenant are the best looking movies in the franchise. Covenant is shot beautifully. The first act of this movie, all around, is actually really strong in all aspects. You got great soundtrack, great cinematography, that is throughout the whole movie, but also great writing, which I really liked. The best scene in this movie is the opening scene where you have David and Waylon having this conversation, and it's already like there's a power dynamic going on as they're talking about creation. You got Waylon saying, "Bring me this tea," and the tea's like right fucking there already. I like things like that. I thought it was well written. I thought it was smart. Now, unfortunately, all that kind of comes to a halt when we get to the chest burster scene in this movie, or I should say the back burster scene. That's when things get iffy for me. The xenomorph looks bad in that scene. The CGI of it looks like it looks like a rat. It looks like if there was hairless rats in Bloodborne. It looks it's noticeable. The special effects on that were not good. The biggest problem I have with the scene is the tonal whiplash. Up until that point, I was under the assumption we have, besides the captain, a strong, competent team. These people seem like they know what they're doing. They seem like professional, scientific explorers that know what they're doing. You could write that scene off as, oh, they were panicking, it was a scary situation that no one really understood, but it just doesn't. From what we got from the first 40 minutes, that setup does not transition well to how that scene was executed. It comes off as, okay, what are we doing here? And that feeling just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the movie goes on. The writing gets more clumsy, I feel like. They try tying things up with Prometheus. We have David and Michael Fassbender's other character, Walter, interacting in this movie. I thought those scenes were probably the stronger aspects as we got to the second and third act, but not strong enough to be like, I love those scenes. Interesting ideas all around, but none of them executed very strongly, I would say. Also, kind of a nitpick, I did not like Michael Fassbender as Walter. As David, he's easily the best character in both of these movies, wonderfully performed as David. As Walter, his accent, I could not buy it, personally. It felt distracting every single time he spoke. And it's not even because, oh, it's one actor playing two different voices, two different roles, so it breaks the immersion. James McAvoy in Split did it way more, and he did it way more efficiently. Not only did I buy every time he was putting on a new character, a new voice, I welcomed it. I was like, oh, let's see what else he could do. Michael Fassbender's character, again, it could be Ridley Scott's directing or just Michael Fassbender's choice of accent. The Walter accent did not work for me. Now, that is kind of a nitpick, but Michael Fassbender is a talented actor, and I did expect more. So it was pretty disappointing that every time he spoke, it broke my immersion. Now, I would say basically every Alien movie has this tendency to drag on a bit by the last 20-15 minutes of it. We get this epic climax, a little breather, another climax, and then the credits roll. Covenant does it the worst in this movie. This movie drags crazy in the third act. We get this epic climax. We get a 5-minute breather, and then we get another climax, and then we get another 5-minute breather. Then we get the stupid ass plot twist, and it's like, the movie was done like 20 minutes ago. Can we wrap this up already? And I wouldn't even say the ending is a plot twist. It was probably meant to be more received as just a nice, crazy revelation. But if you take 2 seconds to think about it, it is kind of stupid. Because, like, you could have just done that. You could have just waited. But, yeah, movies, I don't know. There was a really bad actress in this movie. Hold on. She put on a horrible performance. What was her name? Kaylee Hernandez. Yeah, Kaylee Hernandez. I don't remember what her character's name was, but she had the worst performance in the movie. Every line she said was terribly delivered. To the point, it was pretty distracting. But yeah, this is not a horrible movie. As much as I dogged on it, it's just not a good movie either. Alright, next up, 5th place in the Alien franchise, we got Alien 3, 1992, directed by David Fincher. So Alien 3, I've only seen the theatrical version, so we're only going to talk about that. I haven't seen the assembly cut. Now, just in case if you don't know the man, the myth, the legend, David Fincher, he is the same director of Fight Club, Gone Girl, Zodiac, Seven. The man has some hits. Seven was his next movie after Alien 3. This was his directorial debut. I think that this movie is not that good, but I don't think it's as horrible as people say it is. I think this movie is overhated, to be honest. You don't get a whole lot of David Fincher's style in this movie, which is unfortunate, because apparently the stories go, all the executives were breathing down his neck, changing this, changing that, didn't really give him a whole lot of creative liberty. The movie isn't bad. This movie has its flaws. This movie has the worst effects in the entire franchise, which is embarrassing because Alien came out in the 70s and it still looks timeless to this day. There should be no reason for the effects to be as bad as they were in this movie. They're worse than Resurrection, and that's saying something. I believe they tried going old school with the effects because the xenomorph in this movie is a hybrid of a dog, which that scene is probably the best scene in the movie. One of the best scenes. That's a fucking crazy scene. And the xenomorph design, when it's not moving, looks awesome. It's scary. It's creepy. When it is moving, it's possibly some of the worst digital effects, VFX you'll see in a movie, unironically. In a Hollywood movie, I'll say. You got these shots of it running through hallways, these shots of it up on a ceiling hanging, and it's night and day. You see that shit instantly. It's like, oh my god. 1 or 2 moments, I will let it slide. It's the 90s, but it's so consistent, especially by the final act. Another flaw of this movie, besides the effects, is the writing, I would say. The writing isn't terrible like Resurrection. It's not bad like Covenant. It's just an underwhelming story, I would say. There's not a whole lot of meat to chew on in this movie. It tried capturing the horror of Alien 1, but it's not nearly as scary. It's not a scary movie, I would say. I wouldn't even consider this a horror movie. I would consider this more of a dark survival thriller. A rated R one at that. There are some themes sprinkled in of faith and redemption. This movie has an interesting setting. We're no longer on an alien ship. We are on a prison planet with a population of like 20 people with only prisoners. It's all men. There's no women. Besides Ripley, because Ripley crash lands on here. So you got these candlelit long hallways, these engravings on the walls. It's very gothic. It's very industrial and grimy. It's got a great atmosphere and setting all around. Now, because we're on a prison planet and how they introduced the characters at the beginning, I thought I was gonna fucking hate the cast, hate the group of characters. I was like, oh my god, this is just gonna be a bunch of, this is just gonna be a bunch of miserable people. Oh my god, I don't like movies like that where everyone's a miserable, unlikable piece of shit. This movie didn't have that though. By the end of the movie, I liked all the characters. I liked most of the characters that survived by the end, which I was surprised by. They had a little bit more depth than I was expecting. They had more personality than I was expecting. Solid group all around. I also really like the character Dylan. He has one of these cool movie speeches on some, Independence Day shit where it's hella motivational. You got great music in the background. That is probably the best scene in the movie besides the dog birth alien scene. That scene's actually a great scene. So the characters are more likable, but overall, that doesn't save the movie from still having a pretty mundane, boring story. We are getting just a xenomorph running around one location trying to kill people, except it's not scary like it was in Alien. Now, there are some bad writing moments. There is a dumb scene of a fake out death scene involving two characters. I don't want to spoil it, but that was dumb. It's like, okay, you did that just for intensity for the audience, but it broke the immersion because why would those characters do that within the context of the story? The final act also had a stupid, pointless sacrifice. It felt like the writers were just trying to tug at the emotional heartstrings of the audience, but it wasn't earned at all. I was like, why is he doing that? And I get with the themes of redemption, faith, sacrifice, you can make up something to justify that, but in general, I just thought it kind of came left hook. Also, the final act is probably the worst, like I said earlier, when it comes to the effects. You get this long scene of the xenomorph running around chasing people, and it's mostly shot in POV first-person shots of the xenomorph. The first one or two, I'm like, oh shit, this is a cool way to show how fast it is, how intense this is. But then they just keep showing it. The same fucking shot over and over and over and over and over. And it's like, okay, you're losing me. You're showing me the same shot with no consequences of this fucking xenomorph running. What are we doing here? I think the reason they did that was because they wanted to minimize the actual shots they had to show of the alien running in a third person point of view. Because those are easily, again, like I said, the worst shots in the movie. Those are bad. And I don't want to hear a product of its time because Jurassic Park, I think, came out either a year or 2 years within this movie's release date. And obviously, it still looks good. I know some people have a problem with how Alien 3 handles the characters of aliens. I won't spoil it. I didn't necessarily have too much of an issue with it. I just wish I had a better payoff than what we eventually got. Overall, though, this movie is not horrible. It's not. I don't even think it's a bad movie. I just think it's okay. It's meh. Alright, now reaching the top 4, we got Alien Romulus, 2024 this year, directed by Fede Alvarez. Now, this movie was underwhelming for me. It's so high up because this franchise doesn't have a whole lot of bangers, in my opinion. It has great ideas, but in terms of good quality movies, it's on the weaker side, I would say. Now, if you want to know why I have this movie where I have it, whether you think it's too high or too low, I do have a review of this movie on the channel. I believe it's my first video I have. Check it out if you want the details, but in summary, I do think that this movie is well made, it's well shot, it's well acted, it's got some great music, but it is underwhelming because it felt like a retelling of Alien 1979 in the sense of Star Wars The Force Awakens felt like a retelling of A New Hope. Both kind of unoriginal movies playing it super safe to open the eyes of a new generation that an older, better, more original movie did many years prior. Not a horribly made movie, just kind of boring in the sense of we got nothing new added to this franchise. In fact, I actually wouldn't be surprised if Romulus ages the worst on this list. In a few years, it could just go lower and lower because of its unoriginality. However, the next movie is a banger. With number 3, we got Prometheus, directed by the man himself, Ridley Scott, 2012. This movie did what Covenant tried to do. And it explored new ideas within its own franchise, went for almost a whole different theme, went for a whole different storyline. This movie is flawed though, sorry to all the Prometheus heads, it is not the best Alien movie. I could see why some people like it the most, because it is the most unique and the most different. Let's go over the things I like first. One thing I liked, obviously, Dariusz Wolski, the man, the myth, the legend, same man who shot Covenant, shot this movie. This would be second place in the franchise, I would say, in terms of best looking movie. This movie is beautifully shot. Just like Covenant, it's so, especially the opening sequence we get of the cinematography of just the planet that we're on, So good. Prometheus also has the greatest character in the entire franchise. My personal favorite, that is of course Michael Fassbender as David, the synthetic. He is so good in this movie. His character is so well written and it's so intriguing. It's like if Hall 9000 was a humanoid android. He obviously has the best scenes in this movie. His conversation with Holloway, his little sequence at the beginning before he meets humans. Every time he was on screen, I was glued. He was the steel shower. The show stealer. Fuck me. I would say that this movie has a weaker cast compared to the other Alien movies. Definitely, I prefer the Alien 3 characters to these characters, besides of course David. These characters felt like they were in a Marvel movie. Like, oh, you're the one with the accent, you'll be the one-liner. Oh, you'll be the guy with jokes, you'll be the asshole, you'll be the girl. These characters felt underwritten, I would say. Obviously, besides David. David's goated. The set pieces in this movie are also really good. You got this giant-ass head in this dark, lidded room, surrounded by these weird things coming out of the ground. It's very mysterious, very atmospheric. One of the strongest points of Prometheus is how intriguing it is, but I also think that is the double-edged sword, because one of the biggest complaints that people have with this movie, and that I have with this movie, it offers more questions than answers, which could work in a movie. I don't think Prometheus delivers that very well. I think this movie has interesting ideas and concepts it wants to explore, but I think they're loosely held together by some string. It's not concrete enough. It feels a bit convoluted as the story goes on. It's not necessarily confusing, but it's just more jarring than anything. And in terms of the writing, there are some kind of iffy moments, such as, I won't spoil it, but there is a very graphic and disturbing scene in the movie. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You would think that that scene would play such a pivotal role in the movie and the character that it's involved with, and all the other characters that should probably learn about what happened in the scene, but it kind of gets just glossed over. Nobody really gives a shit. It's kind of just moved on from there. That's it. And that was a bit distracting because, again, I feel like that scene should have been a much bigger deal than it was. I respect that this movie and Ridley Scott tried pushing the boundaries on the Alien franchise. This movie tried doing something extremely different and bold. I don't think they did it as well as they wanted it to do, and it didn't work for me as much as I wanted it to work, but I still think that this is one of the better Alien movies. Definitely the most original, and I always get props for that. Top 2 best Alien movies, unsurprisingly, it is the top 2 that most people would consider the best, and for second place, I got Aliens, 1986, directed by James Cameron. This movie did such a left field in terms of a sequel. You got Alien, 1979, that came out, dropped, instant horror sci-fi classic. And then a few years later, you got James Cameron saying, let's make a sci-fi action rated R family adventure badass fucking movie. And it works. This is easily one of the greatest sci-fi epics you'll see. The set pieces in this movie are so grand, so well made. It's so immersive. I love shit like that. The 80s were so good at just bringing the atmosphere in terms of the set pieces. Back to the Future, I have my problems with that movie. Also 80s did this phenomenally. Such a strong cast. We have Sigourney Weaver as the real Ripley. Ripley's so good in this movie. Probably my favorite. I don't know if I like Ripley more in this movie or in Aliens. Either way, these are her 2 best movies. She shined in these movies. She was good in Alien 3, better in Aliens. Don't know if she was better in Alien. Hey, real quick, y'all listen to this though. We also got Hicks. We got Newt, the adorable girl who plays kind of the surrogate daughter. There's the lesbian Mexican girl. I forget her name, but she was cool. We got the coward turned hero type of character. He was cool. This is a fun movie. James Cameron, the man behind Avatar, and that's the only movie he's ever made. He obviously knows what he's doing. He is basically at this point a film god when it comes to sci-fi action. And his colors show in Aliens. If you're a fan of that genre, this is easily a top tier movie that if you haven't watched, what are you doing? Watch it. Gotta pick any flaw. There are some of those 80s digital effects that we got that obviously haven't aged well. I'm talking about the ending of Back to the Future where the DeLorean starts flying, where that's probably the worst effect in the whole movie. Those little nitpicks here and there. It's not enough to break the immersion. It's not like Alien 3 bad or Alien Resurrection where it's like, what are we doing? It's forgivable because this movie, unlike Resurrection, is good all around. It's so cool that it took such a left field departure compared to the original Alien, and it actually stuck the landing. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to objectively the greatest Alien movie in the Alien franchise, and that is, of course, in first place, Alien, 1979, Ridley Scott's masterpiece. The rumors are true. This is the greatest sci-fi horror movie ever made. Probably my favorite sci-fi movie. I don't know if I'd take this. I think I would take this personally over 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now chill. I know which movie is more important in terms of cinema history, but as a personal preference, I fucking love Alien. Probably because I'm a sucker for horror, but this movie is near perfect in all aspects. One, it's timeless. All the effects are so well made and so good. I don't even know where to begin with this movie because I want to do a full review on it from beginning to end and also do a spoiler talk. But in summary, everything about this movie is just so top tier filmmaking. The fantastic set designs, fantastic set pieces, fantastic costumes, the xenomorph still, man, Giger, however you say his name, he is a freak of nature. He designed this xenomorph freak looking thing and it is still haunting to this day. It's still iconic. It's so influential. The movie in general is so influential. Great acting, great writing, great pace. The horror in this movie works, and that's what I fucking love, because I need horror movies to scare me, y'all. Y'all don't understand. I've seen so many scary movies and none of them are scary. Alien, I would say, is actually still scary. I saw this movie for its entirety for the first time this year, and there were scenes that got me. I was like, oh shit, what is that doing there? Why the horror works is the restraint they have from showing the xenomorph. You know it's in the ship with them, and you just feel its presence throughout. And the little scenes that we do get from it, it is horrifying because we're like, this thing is hunting them down, and they don't understand it, we don't understand it. So many iconic horror scenes. The chest burster scene is still insane. You got probably my favorite scene. I don't want to spoil it. I want to talk about this in the actual review. It involves looking for a cat. And it's just so good. Timeless look, timeless scares, great acting all around. Ripley, this is her introduction. Sigourney Weaver fucking killed it. Just Ian Holmes, oh my god, R.I.P. the GOAT. Oh my god, Ian Holmes the GOAT. They fucked you up in Romulus. Oh my god. Permission or not, he looked terrible in Romulus. But Ian Holmes, as a human fucking being in the original Alien, so good, so good. If there's one little nitpick I have to say, there's only one shot where you can tell a practical effect is a practical effect. No spoilers if it involves a head, and it's literally just for one shot. The rest of the scene that involves that head looks phenomenal. This is easily the greatest movie in this franchise, undebatable. One of the most influential, iconic horror movies of all time. It accomplished so much. And it's just so, and it still holds up. That's the craziest part. So yeah, Alien is number one on my list. Thank you for everyone who was watching. That just about wraps up the entire video. Let me know, am I dumb? Am I smart? Do you agree or not with my listing? Where would you rank these Alien movies? And yeah, thank you so much for watching. This is always fun. I love talking about movies. This is so cool. If there's any other movie you want me to review, talk about, watch, please comment down in the comments below. Yeah, that'd be cool. And yeah, I do plan on seeing the remake of The Crow in theaters, hopefully either today or tomorrow, so expect a review on that very soon. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you at the next one. Bye.